to another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking way is that a gimme, right?
Back in at the usual Tuesday at 11 a.m. Here we are with Gas Morning Drive. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. After a whirlwind week in Vegas for Jay with a lot going on, all these other projects that Jason Anik is a part of, from Dirty Boxing on down. Pretty busy times for you. You know, and your brother who's signing on to do boxing events and stuff like that.
So a couple things before we get so the G3, like, what is this for your nickname? The G3? Is this?
I've been using it for 2 weeks now. I love it that you're just picking up. It's like a G6 except smaller.
I saw it last week. I'm trying to get used to everything. So I like the G3. And then for the first time, this may be episode 30 of Gas, but we've never seen that T-shirt. Right?
Yeah. I got it's Grand Central Station in my house today. I got skylights being taken out. They're coming to fix something on the pool. And I was just talking to my wife. And then I sat down and I had the shirt. I said to Cody, I was like, oh shit, I forgot to grab the sweatshirt on the other side of the wall here. And he was like, nah, you should keep it. So yeah, this just happened to be, I guess, the episode it's more of I got distracted and forgot to put the thing on in the first place.
Well, I like it. It's distracting me a little bit because I'm typically used to nothing. So we like a little juice out of the gate. It's been a crazy week.
We got more juice than Boston sports right now. I can tell you that. Good grief. I mean,
so what's going on? You got some work going on at your house. What exactly we got going on today?
So I have a walk-in closet. Why? I don't know. It was in the house when I moved here. But now that I am wanting like permanent studio space to where I can set everything up and lock it in, to where I can have a much better backdrop than what I have, I wanted to get the skylight out of there. Why there was one in there, I don't know. It was in whenever they put the house in. So I had to get it out because you can hear rain and stuff like that. So to be able to soundproof it properly so that I can use it for radio and all that whatnot, we had to get those out of there. And then on one side of our house is where the sun really beams in. So I have one kid who really complains about the sun that gets in from the skylight. So I figured I would just blow them out in one fell swoop. Turned into a little bit of a negotiation, and you know, the two downstairs in the kitchen remain. I tried to make it a clean sweep and just get rid of all those things because they leak. You know, like that's the thing. I don't want to wait around for the leak and be like, oh, we put a bucket under it. No, F that. Get them out of there. Put some roof in, for God's sakes.
No, I hear you. Yeah, I'm at my mom's. We got stuff going on at my house, but I know we're here to talk sports on Gas Morning Drive. And I will say, appreciate you and Cody doing this thing on Thursday last week as opposed to Tuesday. I kind of like it, right? Because now it's a quick turn. Talk to you Thursday. UFC event happens over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We flip it right on Tuesday. But let me guess, Monday, I'm sure you had some obligations with a microphone in front of your face.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing doing dog days 12 to 3 most of this week. In fact, you and I are going to wrap up at like 11:45 so I can connect all the gizmos and make sure everything is okay on Mad Dog Radio. And then Thursday I got a doubleheader doing 3 to 6 on Infinity Sports Network and then some ESPN Radio. And then I'm in for Mad Dog on the 4th of July. I don't know if you heard about this. He got a gift from his agent where they sent him to Wimbledon for the first time ever. He's a 65-year-old man traipsing around England right now. Where's court 7? Like, serious.
Dude, and nobody deserves it more. I mean, he's a huge tennis fan and a historian of the sport as well. That's awesome. I'm excited for him. Too bad he didn't get to go there when Federer was competing.
Oh, yeah, there was that. Well, him and Patrick McEnroe are big buddies, and Pat McEnroe runs now the International Tennis Hall of Fame down in Newport. So, you know, I told him, I'm like, listen, you're up here and you want to come, play some golf or Rhode Island Country Club. Come on up, I'll set it up. And the instant credibility, because that's that's the snooty hoity-toity world that I'm only allowed in because I married into the right place. But nevertheless, yeah, he loves his tennis, and it'll be cool to be in for him on the 4th. Perfect timing for me. I don't have to get up early, and I still have the rest of the evening to, make sure that I think my wife is traveling this weekend. She's going to a NASCAR race in Chicago. So I'm basically here to make sure that alleged adults don't do anything too stupid.
Well, the world of sports, even though when the finals ends, right, when the NBA finals ends, you almost, and especially when your baseball team like the Red Sox aren't really contending, you find yourself sort of like, whoa, what am I going to do now? And obviously, those of us that watch combat sports, the UFC takes care of us every weekend, but there is that sort of a lull. But given the trades in the NBA and still, the NFL is creeping. So I would think you've had more to talk about maybe than you would have thought.
Believe it or not, you know what I did on Sunday on Infinity Sports Network? 3 hours on Caitlin Clark. Wow. There were lots and lots of people. Well, I mean, I don't know if you heard about, the latest from these caddy shrews in the WNBA. They had the all-star voting, and it's 50% fans, 25% media, 25% the people in the league. The fans had Caitlin Clark either number 1 or number 2 in the voting. The media had her, I think, at worst, number 3. The players in the league had her as the 9th ranked guard in the WNBA. It's wild. And you know what? Now people are getting hip to it. And a lot of people want to go down the race lines. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's more of hey, I helped build this league for this girl to come in and then take it to the zenith. But for some reason, the WNBA players just love to hate on this girl who all she's done is come in and play basketball and on the whole, shut up. She hasn't cut down anybody. She would have had every reason to sit back and just say, look at what these catty bitches are doing to me. And instead, she's been way above board on the whole thing, way above board.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our producer, Cody Merrow, is a die-hard WNBA fan, women's basketball fan. I just don't fall in that category. So for me, right, I know I'm probably a broken record. We talk about bandwidth, right? Women's basketball, I barely have any bandwidth. And yeah, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, I'm an Angel Reese guy, right? Some of that got me interested slightly, but it doesn't move the needle. So I guess I did see Caitlin Clark get fouled very heavily, and then I think she got cooled off a little bit, right, Cody? Those MVP odds aren't as good anymore. I think I saw a plus 325 Caitlin Clark to win the MVP. But I hope that they figure this out, because it seems quite immature for someone who really has a chance to put this sport on the map in a way that it never has been before.
Well, I had to get smartened up on it too, Jay. And what I've learned is that because Caitlin Clark has come into the league, the WNBA Players Association has now opted out of their CBA. So you have all these women in the league who are looking at Caitlin Clark as if, how is she? Why does she get all the run? When in reality, if it wasn't for her, they wouldn't be opting out of this CBA. They wouldn't be able to grow the way they are. And if you look at, Caitlin Clark, even the phenomenon in college basketball, the 1 year I think it was when they played either LSU or South Carolina. I think it was the first year. They did 18 million people. They did more than the men's championship game. So even if it's just casuals, Caitlin Clark has done the impossible. She's gotten casuals or people like me who never would talk about it in a million years to actually kind of pay attention to it and realize that, to me, she's nothing but good for the WNBA. But the players in the WNBA treat her as if she's like poison or something.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, ultimately, last season, her team wasn't very good, but this season they have a chance to contend, right? So I think, I mean, I can only imagine how interesting this is going to get once they get into the postseason.
Yeah, and rivalries are good. I know Paige Beckers came out recently and talked about the coverage of superstars and rivalries is to divide us. No, it's to make your game interesting. And, for those who've gone down the road of race on this, Paige Beckers doesn't catch any of this hell the way Caitlin Clark does. It's really only Caitlin Clark for some reason. But again, that's, but to the point, it's either that or talking about the money in the NBA and how the Celtics have done such a good job of building a roster. They now have to tear it down. And and Luke Kornet, of all people, $41 million for Luke Kornet on a 4-year deal. We have hit the full plate days of the NBA. Forget the salad days. It's buffet with giant prime rib and stuff like that, and everybody's eating good. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I think, just got $285 million.
So Luke Kornet, given the marketplace, worth every penny. You're going to back up Wemby in San Antonio. I love that. I love that for the player. And we'll get into the Celtics. We'll get into it from a Celtics standpoint. I think we talked about Luke Kornet last week. A lot of people don't know he could shoot the rock, right? When he was with the Knicks, that's what I'm most interested to see, right? For $10 million a year, how they may sort of flesh out the player that is Luke Kornet, because he had a very specific role with the Celtics. It obviously grew a little bit with Porzingis being injured. He saw the floor more, which probably directly translated to more dollars. It was a dismal postseason for the Celtics, but a pretty good one for Luke Kornet. I believe there was a game they sort of called the Luke Kornet game in that postseason somewhere. So, ultimately, I'm really happy for Luke, and I'm glad that he went to a place where I think he can be part of the story, because I think they're going to be playing some really important games in San Antonio over the next 4 years.
Oh, there's no question, Jay. They're a team that's on the rise up. They did a good job in the draft getting Dylan Harper. Ace Bailey was a bit of a knucklehead, at least in the pre-draft process. But Dylan Harper, the one thing that I love about Harper is the bloodline. His old man played in the rough days of, like Ron Harper played in the tough days of the NBA. So I think there's a level of toughness with Dylan Harper. Here's the other thing too about San Antonio. They do a really good job of breaking down players and making sure they bring people in to fit their culture. And Kornet's another one of those guys that fits. I know that some people think culture is overrated. I think in San Antonio, they've kind of perfected it in sort of knowing the kind of people that they want to bring in. So the way I look at it is it's real simple with San Antonio. They've now got their 5 starters. They drafted the wing kid in the middle of the first round from Arizona, who they just got to let go play and grow. And I'm with you. San Antonio is one of those picks to click. And guys like Kornet are so valuable to their roster, teaching them things, the whole right versus wrong in terms of what to do in the NBA. But you know what else? He is coming from a championship culture, going to another one in San Antonio, even though they're not winning right now. And I think for the Spurs, that's massive in bringing in. Like if Al Horford were 4 years younger, I would expect that it would have been Al Horford and not Luke Kornet that San Antonio would have gone after in terms of trying to build culture from the ground up and get people in there that fit it and can help those young kids.
Yeah, you can be sure Luke's going to bring his ring with him to Texas, and Celtics bring back Luka Garza, 2 years, $5.5 million, which is hilarious. And I say it, no disrespect, but Luka Garza, right? If you're Luka, right, you're like, oh man, it's like I'm finally going to this wonderful organization at a time where they really feel like they're sort of punting on at least one season. So maybe the second year of that deal maybe Luka Garza can play in some meaningful games, but clearly Celtics just absolutely punting on next season from a dollars and cents standpoint, from a roster standpoint. I mean, we talk about the East being somewhat wide open. Maybe they could still make some noise, but the big man, Luka Garza, who else is a big on the roster right now? It's hilarious. And you bring up Al Horford, most likely, I've heard rumblings, Golden State Warriors. I don't know if that's official yet. I would love to see that for Al.
Yeah, I would too. I think for Al, there is okay, do I leave for a year and maybe come back? Does he take a 1-year deal? Does he just go I feel like to get the good value out of Al Horford, somebody probably needs to sign him to a 2 or, believe it or not, a 3-year deal, because again, there's I feel you there, Jay, but it's the teams now value having their Udonis Haslem, so to speak. And I think Al Horford I think Al Horford can slide into that kind of role for a lot of teams in the NBA.
Yeah, well, I just feel like UD was willing to take that $500,000 a year, sort of veteran minimum in his early 40s, to sit at the end of the Heat bench and almost become a coach. Al Horford, to me, from a Celtics standpoint, the idea of bringing him back a year from now, I just think that book is closed. 2 stints with the Celtics. First stint was probably better than the second one, but the second one brought him a ring. I just think it's over with. I would love to see him go to a place next year like Golden State, where maybe there's a window to contend. But, we talk about the NBA, right? 8 straight unique champions, right? Been 8 straight years without a back-to-back champion. So you look at a team like 7. Okay. Well, yep. I thought OKC maybe made 7. But, you look at a team like Houston, what they've done to build out their roster. I think it's going to be wide open. A team like San Antonio could be in the mix. A team like Golden State, to me, I don't know. I think a lot of things have to go well for them to be right. And yeah, maybe Al Horford sort of fits in that last gasp. But to me, it's sort of a 1-year hope Curry, Butler, and Draymond are all healthy for good chunks of the season. Otherwise,
I want AJ. I wonder if they can figure it out. Do the Lakers make a run at Al? Because it'd be a perfect fit with that sort of veteran group, knowing if they got to count on Al. And that whole team is get to the postseason. Like, if they could sign up for 50 wins right now, they would do it. I think to know that they would be 3rd in the West. 50 wins, but you're healthy. I think the Lakers would sign up for that. And by the way, isn't it interesting that at this point in LeBron James's career, he's not willing to work with the Lakers on rate money, let's call it. Like Kyrie. I hate Kyrie for what he did to everybody up here. Screw that guy forever. But even he opted out of what would have been a big number and worked with Dallas on a 3-year deal so they could bring in more people to try to win, knowing that they got Cooper Flag on the cheap. The Lakers drafted Bronny. What the hell? So here's the thing. Instead of opting into $52.3 million, why not look at the Lakers and say, let's do 3 for $100? And then LeBron ends up freeing up money. He becomes the hero. Oh my God, the patron saint. LeBron James took less money to stay and help build a roster. Why is that so crazy? Especially, they drafted his kid. Is he really going to leave that organization at the end of the year? That's where I want to tell.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, all your points are very well taken, but I would say that, and I agree with you, right? I that would have made great sense, but I think he's operating selfishly and has the right to do so. I just think there's so many variables there. I think Luka's going to show up in great shape, and I think that's a big piece of this. I really do. I really do believe that that sort of cardio component for Luka, I think it'll lead to better health if he's in better condition. So I think I think he's a little bit of a wild card, which to me, if I'm LeBron, gives me sort of another argument that said, look, you made this trade. I want to see what I'm getting out of Luka. But yeah, if I'm LeBron James, given that he prints money for a living, wouldn't you rather maybe be able to add another $10 million piece like Luke Kornet, if you will, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. It would make sense. It would be anti-LeBron, but it would make sense. And I just don't think he's like his agent. I don't think anybody respects Rich Paul. I mean, he was LeBron's, buddy and do boy. And then how did this guy get into his spot? To me, it was LeBron being able to bully people around in the business world. Sprite needed LeBron more than LeBron needed Sprite. And that opened doors for that guy to do that stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And if you're asking me, do I think LeBron stays in Tinseltown? Yes, I think he's staying in LA. I agree with you. And I think that's where he wants to be. But I think ultimately he likes having the flexibility. Didn't James Harden do something similar? You took a little bit of a
2 for 81. Yeah. And that guy, and he can't win a game of sorry, for crying out loud. It's amazing. Like, that guy can't win a video game. And he could have had, I think it was like 52.6 or 3, just like LeBron, and instead did I think it's 2 for 81. Right. So he shaved it by 10 million, which, to a lot of people, you're like, wow, that's real money. Yeah, it is real money. But for guys like that, where are they in their basketball lives? Like, will we remember LeBron more for all the money that he made at the end of his career? Or would we remember LeBron more if he got that 5th championship, got him closer to Jordan, put him there with Curry, right? Then it's a whole different conversation. Not, wow, LeBron stayed true to the money to the end. Good for you, buddy. He's a billionaire athlete anyway. At this point, he's just stacking bread. Put another ring on your finger. It'll matter more.
Well, I also think having the 1-year deal, I don't know how that gives flexibility or not if there's a trade potentially, right? So next season, obviously that 52 is a high number. If it was structured differently, maybe it could be. But I don't think it's out of the realm. I mean, there were rumblings even this season. Would LeBron want to be moved somewhere at some point? So I think there's probably a lot moving behind the scenes that we don't know about. But gosh, man, the value of these players. I mean, is Kornet making more than Peyton Pritchard?
I think so. Not only is I think Kornet now is in the Sam Hauser category. 4 for 41. I think Hauser was 4 for 45. Really? Yeah. Wow. Again, that's where the money is nuts. It's the mid-level guys. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, SGA in signing that contract, that Supermax contract extension, I think he will end up being the first player who will get $1 million a game. I think he will hit $82 million in salary and might be the first one to do so. Yeah, Pritch got 4 for 30, Kornet right. 4 for 41, and Hauser was 4 for 40. Because there was talk.
What was Hauser?
4 for 45.
Hilarious.
You know, they were
How do you feel about Hauser being north of Pritchard?
I guess I'm okay with it. Pritchard was a first-round pick, so you had to wait a little longer before you could do something with him. Whereas Hauser was just a street guy, so it was easier to bring him in, throw him in the G League, pay him minimum, and then he ended up getting his Powerball ticket. So there were talks that if the Celtics could, that they might trade Hauser to open up the money to keep Kornet. But clearly it never happened.
Well, and if Hauser's 4 at 45, I can understand why, certainly 2 years ago was a better season for Hauser than last year. But, it's interesting. When you heard Brad Stevens talk about sort of the core of the roster, unless I'm mistaken, he talked about Tatum, Brown, Derek White, and he mentioned Pritchard. Now, frankly, for the dollars, maybe Pritchard being part of that core. I know you like Pritchard. Everybody likes Pritchard more than I do. No disrespect. But it really is interesting. I just don't like him defensively in the postseason. I've said it over and over again. I love his handle. The size and gets in the way sometimes. But it really is interesting for me to see because there has been a lot of talk. Oh, do you keep Brown and Tatum together? And we had those conversations, you and I weeks ago. Yep. I really still am in the same place, hoping Jaylen Brown is not. And God, all these trade rumors, man, it has to, I wonder what it's like from a player standpoint hearing all these rumblings. If you're Jaylen Brown, let's say.
Yeah, I think at some point you just realize it's the NBA and you learn to tune it out. And if you have a communicative general manager, anything that gets hot, hopefully you're communicated with appropriately. And I think that's something that Brad Stevens is really good at. I don't think anybody gets caught off guard really with anything. And look, the job that Brad Stevens has had to do has not been fun. He did build it, but he knew he was going to have to tear it down at some point. So, there is a part of me that appreciates that Stevens looks at things in an NBA version, kind of the way Belichick did in the football world. Yeah. He never panicked. He never overvalues people, really. He's shrewd with draft picks. I mean, he took that second-round pick and turned it into 4. And I know it's just second-rounders, which is crazy, but still, it goes to show how he just didn't say, let me just take a player here because I know the contract isn't guaranteed. He was able to slide down and get more capital because when you're dealing with this second apron BS, right, in terms of the CBA, Jay, the way around it is apparently gobbling up draft picks and being able to use them in trades or, horse trade them to get a player at the deadline or something like that.
Well, and I also think Brad Stevens has a lot of Danny Ainge in him, right? When he was willing to trade Marcus Smart, was willing to trade Drew Holiday. Not that was difficult, but Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge, for those of you who haven't seen the Celtics City documentary, I won't spoil it that much, but Danny Ainge was littered throughout. And at one point he was like, I genuinely, at the core of my being, I don't care. You know what I mean? He's like, I've had multiple heart attacks. One of them almost killed me. But I think that's how Danny Ainge really always was, even as a player. A very long career after leaving Causeway Street as a player. So I think there's some Danny Ainge in there where Brad Stevens gives zero fucks. And I think that helps a lot, right? It couldn't have been an easy conversation even with Porzingis. So I think ultimately, I think it's fascinating to me. When Danny signed Brad Stevens as the coach, I was blown away with excitement. How that transition has happened, where Brad Stevens has moved in, it makes you when you're in these situations, similar, like I said, to where the Patriots were with Vrabel this offseason. It's almost hard to mess it up when you have the right people in the spots to make the decisions. In my opinion.
I wish we had a baseball version of Brad Stevens. That's what we need, is a baseball version of Brad Stevens, because right now, the Red Sox are sputtering at best. One all-star, so that is something. It was the password. What Jonathan Ghost Garcia or whatever his name is. But what do we say about the Red Sox that hasn't already been said? I know I sent you something. It was a little clip from Alex Bregman. You've been very big on talk Bregman into it, find a way to keep him here. And it was kind of a wishy-washy, hey, Scott Boras is listening and, our ears are on for anything that anybody wants to throw our way. But it wasn't the full-throated, yeah, man, I really love it here. Scott and I are trying to figure it out with the organization. I feel good where we're at. I didn't hear enough of the reassurance. It still sounded like business Bregman versus I love the Red Sox Bregman.
A lot of my points I've made on past shows, but what I'll say about Bregman, the leadership to me is something that really does need to be measured, especially when you look at the lack of leadership coming out of a guy like Rafael Devers. I talked about re-signing Bregman. This obviously 3-year deal was really only a 1-year, $40 million deal, but I've been talking about this since early April. And obviously he performed with the bat. And I felt as though the quad injury might open up some time on the clock to have conversations, but also that slight little bit of leverage. Hey, we're willing to talk to you when you're somewhat banged goods. But for me, ultimately, they're going to need a veteran. And I said it last week. If you want to overpay a little bit for a guy, this may be the guy, because I really do believe your chances of signing Alex Bregman dwindle as the days fall off the calendar, no matter what happens, whether the team plummets or they make a run. I think either way, if you close this season without him locked up again, the markets in professional sports are funky. And while Bregman didn't maybe get what he wanted at the early of the 2025 free agency period, maybe he will in 2026. So
knowing what Bregman wants is the hard part, Jay. Because if he just wants money, then the Red Sox might get used here. If he really likes it here, then they'll find someone to be able to kind of push the number up with the Red Sox, I think. Because if Bregman does sniff it, now here's the thing. This is where Boras has got to be the guy to sniff around. If he thinks he can get more than whatever the Red Sox are going to pay him and it's all about the money, then Boras probably puts up the stop sign and says, no, we're not going to do anything with you people. Then there is the, hey, does Bregman really like it here? Here's the thing I don't know, Jay, and that worries me the most. Because money and term, they can figure that out. Does Alex Bregman look around with the Red Sox and say, this is a functioning organization?
It's a great question.
Does he get and feel like what he had with the Astros and say, let me, fine. Let me put the tent in the ground and pitch the tent here. Because right now, if there's one group of people that I couldn't think of lower, it's Red Sox management at this point. And sadly, that's Alex Cora kind of lumped in there as well. Yeah. So does Bregman look at that group and say, hey, those guys know what the hell they're doing. I need to stay here because we're going to win?
It's a great question and a great way to put it. And I think ultimately he probably really likes the guys. I genuinely believe he really likes the idea of leading these young players into their primes and being part of the lineup with them. I'm sure has real question marks about all the arms, bullpen and starting rotation as he looks at his future. But I do believe playing in Boston, I do believe there's a part of him that probably already got that taste of the Fenway magic. It's a real thing. And everything's calculated with Scott Boras. There's a reason why there are these discussions right now. It's because there probably is a little bit of want to. And if you're Scott Boras, you can't ignore that the market maybe didn't manifest itself for Bregman as much as they would have hoped last offseason. And he is banged up right now. You know, reports maybe he could come back sooner rather than later. I guess I like stability in an organization that feels anything but stable right now. And I think perhaps it would give some sort of calmness to the fan base right now.
There you go.
I don't think they'll regret it.
Devers 2.0. If we can get this done, it calms the fans down after the whole Mookie thing. And then you're right. It would go a long way in the court of public opinion. We're back to football at the end of the month. You know, there is a preseason football game played in July. July 31st, we have the Lions playing in a preseason game. So we're back in full force here on July 1st on Gas, in that we are almost back to football season. So I know that the Dolphins and the Steelers, because I was on the air when this went down, Dolphins and the Steelers made a trade yesterday. What do you make of, I know you're in South Florida, I'm curious for the reaction down there, but Minkah Fitzpatrick is coming back to the Dolphins for Jalen Ramsey, and they finally got the late round swap done for Jonnu Smith, the tight end from the Dolphins, to head to Pittsburgh. So basically it's Minkah Fitzpatrick and a late round pick for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. It feels like the Steelers really made out.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, ultimately, Jalen Ramsey can be a little bit of a wild card, can be banged up from time to time. Certainly think the Steelers are going all in. Dolphins fans down here, some that I know well, were really upset when Minkah Fitzpatrick walked out that door. And I really believe in his leadership ability. I think the Dolphins are a team maybe on that sort of middle of the road team that may perhaps be heading down before they head back up again. So ultimately, from a Dolphins standpoint, I don't know how excited I'd be about this coming season anyway, but I kind of like the locker room chemistry vibe of Fitzpatrick versus Jalen Ramsey. I actually think this is a trade that makes sense for both teams. I think the Dolphins are going to bottom out. I really do. I don't believe in this season at all. So ultimately, if they're saving a few dollars, you know, I think it's a little bit of much ado about nothing. I believe both of these teams are going to have fits with the teams above them in that conference.
Are you a roller coaster guy?
Yes.
You are. Yeah, you know what? The Dolphins are one of these versions of the roller coaster team that we went and got a fast wide receiver. We got one of these tight pants wearing offensive guys. Let's do everything they say to do on the internet, see if it works in the NFL, and it doesn't. So I'm with you. I think the Dolphins are about to crater. Their head coach is woefully unequipped to be able to deal with the spot that they're in. And yeah, they needed some leadership. And you know, Jay, I've been on national radio screaming to everybody that I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be just fine in Pittsburgh. Part of the reason was the leadership group in Pittsburgh, and Minkah Fitzpatrick was a part of that. But since they still have Cam Hayward running that locker room, I think they're okay sliding Jalen Ramsey in, because whatever diva-ish sort of act he has behind the scenes, Cam Hayward ain't dealing with that ish, just like he ain't dealing with it with Aaron Rodgers. So they did peel some leadership in Pittsburgh and hand it to Miami. But boy, Miami needs it worse than Pittsburgh right now in a big way.
You know, it is fascinating. I feel like it's almost black and white in terms of Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers. Either you have people that are very bullish on Pittsburgh, or you have people like me that are sort of the opposite. I love Aaron Rodgers, even as a Patriots fan, right? I'm rooting for the success in Pittsburgh. It's just really hard for me to imagine. Do we really have a great chance to hoist that trophy in the same division with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow? I just think it's going to be an uphill climb for the Pittsburgh Steelers unless everything goes right. So ultimately for me, I think, yeah, they're going all in, but gosh, they had a great start last season, even sniffed the number 1 seed for a while. But I just think it's way too uphill a climb. Aaron Rodgers coming out saying probably his last year anyway. So, yeah, I wish them all the luck, but I think more likely to be a disappointing year in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, I'm other way. They're winning 11 and at least going to a divisional round. Everybody stays upright. You know why? This is the Jets with professionals. I mean, like Mike again. Aaron Rodgers went from a guy who, hey coach, what's your strategy? Oh, gas, no breaks. To Mike Tomlin. Oh, he sucks. No, Hackett. But again, Arthur Smith isn't great. Yeah, Saleh was a village idiot, in my opinion, and couldn't deal with someone like Rodgers. Again, Mike Tomlin ain't going to get, tricked by Aaron Rodgers, or fall to some of the Jedi mind tricks, but nevertheless.
So before you move on to Brad Marchand, I just want to say one thing about the Patriots in terms of Drake May. And I say this often, right? You'll have a kid that goes off to summer camp, right? A 12-year-old kid, and then he comes back a month later and he looks like a different kid, right? I hate to say this is what I'm hoping for with Drake May. Like I'm hoping all of a sudden I'm like, oh, he looks a little bit older, right? And I know that may sound shallow, but to me, I've said it over and over again. That's the big jump that I'm hoping to see with Drake May. And I will say, when you look back at some of the highlights of last year, right? There are a lot. Drake May did get some criticism with certain decision-making, different things. Certainly got some criticism from me in terms of not sliding here or there. But I've watched some highlights of last season with Drake May, and there are a lot of highlights with this kid, dropping balls and buckets, making good decisions. And so with everything they've built in this offseason, I feel as though I was maybe forgetting some of the good that was there last season with Drake May. I just can't wait. I'm much higher on the Patriots than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's make a bet, right? You like Pittsburgh to win 11 games. I'll bet you straight up that the Patriots have a better year than Pittsburgh.
Oh, I'll take that. Because I'm bullish on the Patriots this year too. But I think that for them, it really is where does the offense kind of lie, and how quickly can Josh McDaniels get not just Drake May? Everybody's going to focus on May. He's got to get the whole group together. That means the wide receivers, the tight ends, the offensive line, and that's up to the OC. He's the one who's got to pull it all together more than just the quarterback. I know there'll be a ton of focus on the QB, but, if the O-line's going to, leak like a diaper and the wide receivers are going to get no separation, even though with McDaniels there's going to be no change.
We believe that the roster's better. Right?
Yes, 100%.
Line, right? So you got Doug Marrone and Dante Scarnecchia there to help with that component for Josh McDaniels. And I believe Josh McDaniels is in the best possible position to succeed right now after taking the year off, looks to be in physically good shape, which I guess is neither here nor there, but I do think it matters, right? I just believe in Josh McDaniels, right? And the head coaching experience. While I hope he's never a head coach again, gosh, I think a lot of that experience is going to be helpful because in a way, he's going to be leading an offense in a way that maybe he hasn't in the past, right? You can be sure. I think Mike Vrabel is going to be very hands-off. Tom Brady isn't going to be there to assist him. So I think McDaniels is fully capable of handling what's in front of him.
And I also think that for Josh, he's going to expand the playbook a little bit. This is his time to play with some of the zone read and motion type stuff. The one thing about Josh is he doesn't have his head buried in the sand, I think, with what's going on trend-wise offensively. Now, how much of it they do to get away from their core, that ultimately becomes a Mike Vrabel decision. But I know we're getting a new forged in Foxborough in a couple of weeks. And what do we got there?
Yeah, so all right. Pretty similar odds, both the over 9.5 Steelers, Patriots, Steelers plus 165, Patriots plus 155. So I guess Vegas likes the Patriots a little more than the Steelers.
Yeah, and I can understand that somewhat because the number isn't going to move that significantly now that Rodgers is on board. And, the Patriots were one of those teams in the offseason. They're going to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL. So you look at that schedule, and if you believe in Drake May and you believe in Mike Vrabel, I can totally understand, where the numbers lie. And it makes a lot of sense, too, for Pittsburgh because I know they have a tough division, but they also are going to get Cleveland twice. It's like getting the Jets twice. It really is. It becomes 2 weeks off during the regular season.
The Patriots are so, in a good way, unpredictable for me in terms of what's going to happen this season, where last season felt pretty predictable, right? They were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL last season, and it just felt like that. Where this season, I think the ceiling, a lot of people talking about the ceiling could be as high as maybe even the Commanders, who made it to the Final Four last year, perhaps. But the other end of that spectrum, certainly it feels like if the Patriots are anywhere close to 5-6 wins, it would be a gigantic disappointment, which makes me happy sitting here July 1st. That's
I think the expectations are appropriate. I haven't heard people be too crazy with Drake May, and I think that's where the head coach has done a good job of kind of managing expectations as we've gone on here in the offseason. Brad Marchand got a 6-year contract. Florida kept all their stars, and they're saying, 2034 be damned. We don't care. They got a chance to win a third cup in 3 years, and they're clearly going for it.
I want to say it was 6 years, $37 million. Do you know how do hockey contracts? I mean, is this all guaranteed for 63?
Yes, it is, but they also still put money in escrow because the league is the shits. So there's a little bit of that. It's $5.5 million a year. And I heard somebody on the NHL network say, at the end of this, he'll be a $6 million skills coach, which I think Florida is willing to live with considering the spot that they're in. They're among the rare teams, Jay, who are able to keep it together after winning back-to-back cups.
Well, exactly. And had the Celtics defended right now, who knows what they would have done in terms of the second apron and in the luxury tax. But what I'll say about Brad Marchand is I'm kind of glad that he's putting himself in the best position to win another cup. The idea we discussed, and you mentioned it before he was even traded, the idea of coming back. But as soon as he went to Florida, you didn't think it was realistic. You always said he was going to re-sign there, whether it be the income tax or whatever it is. But if a player on your team does get moved like this, in my opinion, best case scenario is for them to overperform, win a championship, and then set themselves up for future success. So it kind of is what it is. I don't know if you wear a baseball cap when you go into the NHL Hall of Fame, but I still think most certainly Brad Marchand's going to be wearing the Bruins hat. And it just kind of is what it is ultimately. The Bruins are a whole different conversation, but for 63, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I am too. Good for him. He served his time here well. And if he gets 6 years of money, God bless him. This is what he really wanted from the Bruins. He even said for him, it wasn't so much about money. It was more about term. For some reason, Marchand wanted a 5 or 6 year deal. He wanted that security going well into his 40s. Now, here's another thing to remember too. Brad Marchand, those guys in that world, they do not make massive money. They're not NBA guys. Great point. The extra years of security add to pension, 401k, stuff like that. So in Marchand, there might have been a formula all in his head all along of, I want 6 years. Here's what I'm willing to do. And you could argue he worked with them because had Marchand really gone into free agency, he might not have got the years he wanted, but he would have got more money.
I agree with all of that, and look at Luke Kornet leaving Marchand in the dust. It's hilarious.
Can you imagine?
But Hall of Famer. But ultimately, Marchand is at the age he is. But when you look at, Yager and some of these guys that played forever, and look, ultimately, when you watch Brad Marchand play in the postseason, I understand he was on the third line, but I made a comment on an earlier episode. He looked like he was playing peewee hockey, and he was sort of playing up an age group, and he was just that good, right? And he couldn't have looked faster. So to me, ultimately, if you're signing an aged player, he looked like that he had his youth about him in their run to the cup.
Are you excited for the return of the EA Sports college basketball franchise? Now that we're back into NIL, EA Sports is actually doing deals with these players and putting out the video games we've all wanted for years.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic. I haven't played video games, I think, in like this century. So for me, it's a little bit, doesn't necessarily apply, but I remember playing NCAA basketball, you could be sure. So I'm excited about that. We talk a lot about bandwidth. Video games just I can't find the time.
Yeah, it's tough. I used to love when I had more time or had weekends, to myself, that you do the old play GM and run the simulate the season.
Yeah.
When you go out and shop for and trade for and buy the players. I love doing that for such a long time. All right, there we go. That's it for us on a little bit of an abbreviated edition of Gas. We got to get out of here because I got to connect my gizmo to another gizmo in New York and get ready to do 3 hours on Mad Dog Sports Radio. By the way, it is turning into somewhat that the future Stephen A. Smith spot might be manned by me for a lot of the summer.
Wow.
I just booked 3 days next week, and then the week after that. And the only reason I'm not doing the full week next week is because I booked some stuff on other networks. So
well, that's good. Well, Stephen A. signed 5 years, $100 million with ESPN.
Yeah, so I'm the Brad Marchand of he's Luke Kornet. I'm Brad Marchand of this scenario.
Well, I was going to say, if you want, just slide Gresh, whatever you were going to slide Stephen A. He'll send you the W-4, whatever. You'll be good to go. Right?
Yeah, there you go. Right. I'll build with what they're going to give him. I'll build a network for God's sakes.
Exactly.
You could do Yahoo Radio. I'd figure it out. But
good for you, though, man. And look, if you weren't doing a good job, they wouldn't be keeping you in these spots. So good for you, man.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Seriously.
Or they just don't have anybody else. So either way, though, hey, listen. In the words of the great wrestling manager Jim Cornette, some days they love me, some days they hate me. Both days I got paid. That's really what it comes down to. At the end of the day, are you ringing the register? So there we go. Great job by our boy Cody Marrow. At Cody_Marrow on Twitter. Give him a follow. You know where you can follow us, and we'll see you right back here next week for another edition of Gas.
Peace.